If you love me, you will keep my commandments. I shall ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you forever. That Spirit of truth, whom the world can never receive, since it neither sees nor knows him. But you know him, because he is with you, he is in you. I will not leave you orphans. I will come back to you. In a short time, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me, because I live and you will live. On that day, you will understand that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Anybody who receives my commandments and keeps them will be one who loves me. And anybody who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I shall love him and show myself to him.
Well, that was a very interesting reading, Steve. Some of it, for me, is quite philosophical, but I'm sure that there are some meanings we can unpack there.
Yes, it's keeping the commandments. I guess as soon as you hear that word, you automatically think of the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. So I did this time too, and then I thought there's a bit more to it than just that. Mm-hmm. It's about doing God's will, and I guess the commandments embrace all of that. But it's just the little things in daily life, which perhaps hold you back from loving people. And if you're struggling loving people, well, how do you love God?
How do you love God? Because in the that testament that we sometimes call the New Testament, or the Testament of Jesus, love God and love your neighbour are the two great commandments, aren't they? So if we're not loving our neighbour, very doubtful if we're loving God. Yeah.
It is, and yet I think in our human frailty, God understands, and He said that I don't leave you orphans, and I find that really reassuring, because some days you're finding it hard to stay in touch with God. Sometimes you find it hard to love even those closest to you. Something has happened, and suddenly these feelings of unforgiveness come within your heart, and you know you've got to resolve them, otherwise it's going to dash your day, it's going to dash your relationship with God, because you can't pretend, say, well, I don't love this person, but I love you, God. It's, as you say, it's got to be both God and neighbour, even if the neighbour happens to be family.
Well, it's interesting. I find that whole concept of loving your neighbour when your neighbour has offended you quite a challenge, because you feel you'd like to just push them away, but somehow we have to hold the offence lightly, don't we? And while acknowledging that we're hurt, we still have to pray for the person and wish well for the person, and not add fuel to the fire by offending the person or pushing them away. And that's a real challenge. And what you just said to me then, I thought that was really good, that it's a real comfort to know that Jesus is sending the advocate, and that we will have that spirit of love within us to help us in these circumstances.
Yes, that is really reassuring, actually, knowing that there is somebody we can't see, but somebody who's very much part of God and helps us to keep in touch, guides us. And as the reading said, the Spirit of truth, and I guess that's probably one of a million descriptions you could give of the Spirit. It's the Spirit of joy, the Spirit of peace, but the Spirit of truth. And in this day and age, truth is not easy to see. It's become quite blurred.
Yes.
And Pontius Pilate's question before Jesus, what is truth? It's a very philosophical question, but it does have, it's quite real in the context of this day and age, where sometimes it's hard to know what is the truth.
And probably we can only find that truth if we sit at peace and sometimes in quiet with the Spirit of truth and let God reveal to us what it is. Because we don't always find it in great and noisy conversations and reading the newspaper. And not that I'm saying we shouldn't read the newspaper, but we also need to have that time of reflection with the Spirit, don't we? Yeah.
Yes, well, when we're in touch with the Spirit, we're in touch with not only God but the world around us. It helps us to understand things that perhaps are not quite working in God's way, but at least the Spirit helps us to understand and how to interpret them and how to respond to them. So we don't get too fundamentalist in our approach and say, well, that's wrong, you can't do that. But there's other ways of actually dealing with a situation than actually a full frontal assault.
that tendency to black and white thinking is so easy to fall into, isn't it? Because for me, in a way, Christianity has got some grey, fudgy areas, and I'm not saying that we don't know right from wrong, but sometimes we as Christians are confronted by a situation where we have to make a decision, and it's very hard to see what is the right way to do it. It's not clear, and that grey area we need to bring Jesus in and just sit quietly or wait until something's revealed. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to start stepping out or start the process of making a decision before
you feel ready,
and before perhaps an answer is revealed. Sometimes you don't quite know which way, and you know that if you're on the wrong path, you will find out very, very quickly. And as long as you're prepared to change tack, it's it's okay.
That's the secret, isn't it? Being prepared to change tack if you need to, and not being wed to our own way of thinking, or so intractable that we think this is the way I've started. People think less of me if I change track. Because you hear in the media so much, so-and-so said that 5 years ago, and listen, they've changed their mind, they're flip-flopping. Well, people change, people do change, and new information comes, and that happens in our own lives too, that we've got to be open to new information and new insights.
And it's not helpful someone digging up the past like that.
Absolutely, totally.
And perhaps you would have liked that to have been forgotten.
Left gone, yes. Well, that's given us a lot to think about in this time heading immediately before Pentecost, and it's really going to be a good time for us, that lovely feast. Thanks.
Yes.